Boy, what a swing in the game. Yesterday wasn't like a roller coaster game because roller coasters usually have more than one dip. There was really just one dip and one rise in yesterday's game. Go from down 13 to up by 19 with about a minute left.
It's like you're trying to get your way out of quicksand or something there at the beginning part of that game.
Yeah. All right, Clay Henry's with us. He's on the telephone today. And Clay, you've obviously heard the big news. Arkansas State 2025 War Memorial Stadium going to be moving the UAPB, Western Carolina, one other non-conference game that I can't remember, also to War Memorial. The Missouri game no longer in Little Rock, now in Fayetteville. It's a lot to digest. So what do you think?
Yeah, I know Coach Broyles probably just turned in his grave, but stuff happens, right? And what's good in one time period may not be good in another time period. 2025, I'll probably be retired, so maybe I won't be in the stadium for that game. I don't know, but it's hard for someone like me that's grown up in an era where that was considered the unthinkable to it's going to happen. I understand exactly why it's going to happen and the reasons for it, so I understand, and it's probably the right move. You're in an interesting time that you're playing two conference games away from home, including their home games, and so you're only having in certain years you're only having two SEC games in your stadium, and that's untenable. And so this fixes that. And I assume that eventually the home and home and AT&T Stadium in Arlington is going to go away too. But this is an immediate fix for that, and that next year you would not play Missouri and Little Rock. And that's why this is all conceivable at this point, that would fix that problem and give the people in the stadium in Little Rock a reason to hold hope that the Razorbacks will still be there in a meaningful way.
Was there ever a thought in your mind that if Arkansas would not play any longer in War Memorial Stadium, that fans in Central Arkansas, a place that I lived for over 19 years, would suddenly give up on them, And I really feel like the Chad Morris era would have been the opportunity for those fans to give up. Some of them might have, but I think the bulk of them still hold on to their love for the Razorbacks, and I think that playing that game in Little Rock feeds them a little bit. I wonder what you think. If the game would have been taken out of there and you would have never played in Little Rock again, what does that do to the overall fan base in the state?
Well, two things. One, when the Razorbacks are strong, none of it matters. When the Razorbacks are rolling, but they haven't been rolling. And I think that what happened over the last 7, 8, 9 years is that the Razorbacks were playing so poorly on the field that it made any game a tougher sell. And the idea that they played many games less in Little Rock than they once did. In my day, first of all, I know many people in Arkansas know me and know me well, but the house that I was born in was across the street from the stadium. There's a Wendy's restaurant there on Markham. That was our house. Was there. And then we lived on, all the way from third grade through high school at 18th and Fair Park, which is just a stone throw from Kerr Conway Field, which was interesting when I went down and watched the Arkansas ULR scrimmage there, and basically turned off the road to my house to get into the stadium where I grew up keeping score for the Legion games there. And could walk to War Memorial Stadium. So that, it's just, the idea of not playing games there was, just kind of made me sick at my stomach. And that doesn't mean that I don't get the idea that your stadium in Fayetteville is about 10 times better than the one in Little Rock now. So I hear all those arguments, and I nod my head, you're right. But it still hurts me that, we don't going to play there. So I think it's a good thing to keep games there. And there's a price to everything, Bill, Matt. I mean, you have to do things that keep your program moving forward, and this appears to do that. And there'll be an awful lot of people that don't agree with it, but it also is, you can't make everybody happy all the time. I understand that.
Right, yeah. And it seems in this case it's an effort to try to keep most people at least a little bit happy. But I wonder, like, the whole argument against Arkansas playing Arkansas State always centers around the idea that there's nothing for the Razorbacks to gain. There's only something to lose. Even a win over Arkansas State is so expected that it doesn't carry any weight. If you lose to them, it can crush you in certain ways. Is that true? Is this a situation where the Razorbacks have nothing to gain? Because I don't know if I buy that.
No, this is why what I just said, Bill. Finally, there is a reason to do it, because you get your conference games moved to home, and you're still having a relevant game in Little Rock. It's the first time that I can see. All right, this would be a reason to do it. Is that you don't have to play a conference game in Little Rock. You play your conference games at home, and in this 1 year, every other year, it's a problem. So, I understand why they're doing it. It's why, there's something to gain in doing this. And when in the past years there's been nothing to gain, it's a lose for Arkansas. But this gives you a reason to do it. Yeah. And so I get it. And Hunter Yurachek is going to be vilified by some that don't get it. There's people in the Jonesboro and Northeast Arkansas area that are Razorback fans that don't like the idea of playing Arkansas State, and they won't like that. And then there's some that do, and then there's some in other parts of the state that don't get it at all. But when you tell them, okay, this is a way to keep your conference games on campus, then it makes some sense. Not saying it's the perfect solution, but it to me, it's the first time that I said, okay, this is a way that you can do it, and that there is a somewhat helpful to the Razorbacks.
Because we got about a minute left in this segment here, Clay, but it feels like it's not like this was a poorly kept secret, because there wasn't a secret about it, but you could see this coming through the last year and a half, with baseball scheduling in-state schools and Arkansas State this upcoming year. Women's basketball has done it. Muss has talked about, potentially playing the in-state schools too. So it just felt like, the other sports as well, volleyball, tennis. So I felt like, I understand football, is the tail that wags the dog, but I didn't feel like that program would be separate from the rest of the programs in scheduling Arkansas State and the other in-state schools.
Well, the reason why football took so much longer is that there were so many, there's so many things that had to be, blanks had to be filled in, and there was no way to do it before 2025. There are no openings, and there's been such a flux of, with the SEC and trying to, to find dates, and it wasn't as easy as just saying we're going to play them. I think they could have played this year in basketball. There were some openings, and Arkansas State wasn't interested. And so I think that you have to, but you're right. It was a slow, steady drip of, okay, here it comes, and finally the faucet's been turned on, right?
Yeah, and that spigot's a big spigot, and it's coming out like a fire hydrant right now. Clay,
it's going to be fun. It should be interesting. We got something else to talk about during the slow time.
I agree. That's well said. Less prep for us. If you got any questions for Clay, get him in with us. He's with us in the next segment as well. 877-3 888-377-6963. And here it is. We all forget, like, there was the Razorbacks won a basketball game late last night. They did. They won that. That's a 4-game SEC winning streak, folks. Maybe we'll dig into that with Clay, so stay with us. Speaking of podcasts, I'm going to be on Trusting the Process with Ty later on this afternoon.
Oh,
dude's really, he thinks he's like Roy Firestone. He's going to try to make me cry. I'm pretty sure he's going to do that. You just heard Chuck Barrett, a rather animated Chuck Barrett, with that call from last night's win over Mississippi State. Clay, that's called really getting animated. I don't know what happened the other day.
Yeah, I was gonna coach you a little bit. If you get animated with Ty, you can hurt his feelings really easily.
Well, you can get animated with me for the next 10 minutes or so, and I won't take any emotional injury from that.
I don't think you've ever given me a reason to be animated. I don't know what. Isn't that good radio when somebody's animated? And that the whole idea of doing this is that we would not be mundane and boring. Now maybe when you have blonde mullet, animation bothers you. I don't know.
Are you talking about? Are you referring to John Daly or someone else?
To our friend Mr. Richardson.
Yeah, I just feel good that I've been doing this for almost a year, and I hadn't pissed Clay off yet, so I feel like I've done good so far.
Not that you know of.
No, but it's okay if you do. I get over it really
right.
quickly.
Oh, absolutely. No, like you said, it makes good radio. And no, I was.
And it's not, but I mean, it's like if Ty's wrong, I know that there are people sitting out there saying, Clay, get him. He's headed off into one of his tangents. Reel him in, get him. So I will.
We've had lots of people text in. Adam from Wynn said we got to ask Clay about how he set Ty straight. That was some of the best radio they've ever heard. Chandler and Van Buren wanted to ask the same thing. He wanted to make sure that you and Ty were still good friends and had a good working relationship. So,
gosh,
no,
I feel like
fine.
I need to put together a beer summit or something.
There was, and just so Ty knows he's in good company. This is years ago. I basically sabotaged one of Chuck Barrett's shows. He always has this monologue that he'd start out the show, and it would be, he did a caller-driven show. And without question, it was caller-driven. And so he set the stage that he thought he would have calls for 45 minutes straight. And that's the easy way to do a show, right? And so I'm sitting there, and whatever he said, I was like, well, that's silly. This is the other side to that. This is the real truth, which is what he was wanting callers to call in. I mean, it would be obvious. But I went in 5 minutes and gave all the different arguments for why he was wrong, and there was no reason for anybody to call up. And we went to the break, and he wadded up his notes and threw a paper ball across the table at me. He says, "You do the dang show." And it was great. And it was really animating what he, sent back my way beside the paper wad. And the next day at football practice, Mike Irwin, he says, "I'm told that you and Chuck just had a knockdown drag out. Y'all fought on the air." I was like, "No." I mean, I said, "We just did radio." It's, Chuck's one of my best friends, and best friends can argue. There's not any doubt. Now let me set this straight. I'm not to that point with Ty yet. He's not my best friend.
Are you to the point of being able to make up? That's the question.
Oh, no, we're fine. We're fine. The next few segments were fine, weren't they, Matt?
Oh, they were fine. There was just some I'm sitting right next to Ty, and he had his head in his hands a little bit after that was done. But
Clay, you make a good point.
Did?
I mean,
okay. Well, I'm in Norfolk. I can't see that. The next time that happens, would you take a picture and send it to me?
Yes, absolutely.
I
I will be happy to do that for you, my friend.
But in radio, you're right. I mean, you got to be animated at the right time, whether you're calling a game or whether you're just hosting a show and doing, having an opinion on something. That's what Get Off My Lawn, yesterday's segment to end the show is all about. And I remember the first time I heard sports radio from outside where I grew up, and I would get 660 The Fan from New York, really, who invented 24-hour sports radio. Every one of those hosts was animated. And I'm thinking, gosh, this is the way you're supposed to talk sports. Clay, do you remember the first sports radio program that you tuned into on a normal basis?
No, because I think I might have been on the first. I mean, Chuck and I did talk radio. Well, I think maybe Rick Schaefer and Grant Hall may have done some talk radio, but there was no animation in that. It was very monotone. It was Rick, and there was nothing up about their show. And Chuck and I did one opposite them back in the mid '90s, and we had a lot of fun, and we went back and forth. I remember one of the exciting days. He asked me. He says, "You think your dad would do an hour with us?" And he was in town the next day, so my dad sat in. So the three of us did talk radio, and Chuck wanted to take calls. I said, the three of us don't need any calls. We can do hours and hours of talk radio, sports, stuff. And I wish that show had been taped, because you could play it now and it'd still be good. Because of my dad, not because of me and Chuck.
Got a text in from Brandon in Paris that says that you need to tutor Connor Vanover on how to get animated and riled up. I thought Connor got a little riled up on that 7-point run yesterday, one of his better games of the year, but I was really just more impressed with how Arkansas came back from a disastrous start. I mean, that was worse than the start against LSU or Bama or Auburn. The only difference was Mississippi State couldn't hit a shot to save their lives. So down by 13 to a win like that was impressive.
Yeah, not only could they not hit a shot, but I actually felt sorry for Ben Howland, because, what Arkansas did was they made the non-ball handlers handle the ball, and the walking calls, balls just, they would be trying to dribble and it would just shoot out of their hands out of bounds, or it'll go off their foot or their leg. And the number of turnovers that they made that I wouldn't call them forced, other than Arkansas made their ball handlers give up the ball. And there were some guys out there on the court that didn't need to be holding the ball. They're defenders and nothing more than that in their scheme. And they had two guys that you didn't want to handle the ball, and every time they touched it, Arkansas brought a double, and they give up the ball, and then there'd be a turnover. And it was that might have been the last 30 minutes of that game by Mississippi State was the longest stretch of ugly basketball that I've ever seen an SEC team play. Now, Arkansas had 10 minutes, just like it, to start the game. But that 30 minutes by Mississippi State, that trumped it.
Yeah. It's funny, too.
It was bad.
I know the reason that you got animated on the show the other day was about the freshmen on the basketball team. And you just take away any of the statistics. You got a win in the SEC, and two freshmen played over 35 minutes. Devontae was out there for 35 minutes. Moses played 37 and a half minutes. They were effective on both ends of the court. And I got to tell you, Moses is in a class by himself. He's going to be one and done. I picked a couple of days ago, DeAndre Davis is my favorite player on this team. He brings an energy. There's a way he goes about it. And I know he's just a freshman right now, but I feel this team feeds off him in a way that they do when Desi's playing well. And this is the kid moving forward the next 2-3 years who's going to lead this program.
There's still some rawness about him, and there's some mistakes, but he takes coaching well. He understands that he's being coached. He's willing to take criticism, and he doesn't make the same mistakes over and over. He's getting better. And I'll tell you the guy he reminds me of, and this is, we're talking about, royalty, but he reminds me of Sidney Moncrief. And Sidney didn't have, as a freshman, he was had the luxury of playing with other great players like Brewer and Delph and some other really good players. But the effort and desire and the ability to go get the ball on the loose floor or go up above the rim with two hands to get a rebound in traffic, and just effort plays over and over and over reminds me of Moncrief. And I haven't said that about too many players in a Razorback uniform.
That is some high praise, Clay. That is some real high praise. But on the other side, on the other side of basketball gender, you wrote a great piece after the win over UConn about Chelsea Dungy, referring to her as Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. Yep.
We got about a minute here. We're watching something truly special, not just in the sense of this season in which she's becoming one of the more sought after players for the WNBA draft, but this 3-year career, which really 4 years because she sat after transferring from OU. For me, it really is the stuff that legends are made of. And I've watched women's basketball now up close, calling games for 16 years. I've never seen anybody quite like Chelsea.
Yeah. So here's what I would say. There's certain players in time that you would pay money to go watch. She's one of those, and that's coming from somebody that generally does not have to pay to watch any sports. Very few times, but like you're talking about people like McFadden, Clyde Scott, Lance Allworth, and in the female sport, Chelsea is that way to me. She is a great player. Should be All-America. I mean, it's. She can take and put a team on its back and do the Wonder Woman stuff, and that's what she did Thursday night against UConn. It was great stuff to watch.
All right, Clay, appreciate you coming on with the phone today, man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Stay
Clay.
animated. We'll talk next week.
Okay, enjoyed it. Thank you all for having me.
You got it. That's Clay Henry from Hawgs Illustrated, 877-377-6963, hour number 2, and the Meat Hook's next.